The news is not Malachi Nelson has been named the starting quarterback for the Boise State Broncos ahead of their season opener against Georgia Southern. And that's not insignificant because the following week, Boise State got to go play Oregon. And they're going to do it, it seems, with Maddux Madsen as their starting quarterback. That news from Spencer Danielson, first reported by Pete Thamel and then later confirmed by literally everybody else, that Maddux Madsen had done enough in camp to solidify himself as QB1 over former number one quarterback in his class and backup at USC and tapped by Lincoln Riley, Malachi Nelson, who transferred to Boise State with the thought, we all thought, that he was going to be the starting quarterback for the Broncos come hell or high water in 2024. Turns out, hell and high water have shown up as Maddux Madsen is the dude. Now, this is not really going to be as much about Maddux Madsen in the narrative as it is about Malachi Nelson. That said, you should know Madsen played in 2023 when Taylor Green went down and is purporting himself okay. 1,234 yards, 121 rush yards. Seen enough of him to know, okay, it's tough. It's a tough look. It's a tough look because Malachi Nelson was a top 100 prospect coming out of high school and went into the transfer portal as a number 91 prospect. Like most from 99 to 91, it's real difficult to move up in the prospect rankings when you're already that high up and you're transferring, because transferring is already met with an eyebrow raised about why aren't you doing this. But Malachi Nelson also went into the transfer portal before the Holiday Bowl when Miller Moss showed out against Louisville and more or less took the job away from anybody else that wanted to have it, including guys that were thinking about transferring to SC now that Caleb Williams had gone off to the NFL. Thought Malachi Nelson might want to stay and fight that out. Turns out the uncertainty of not being the starter was really starting to grate on him and grain on him. And to his credit, he went to Lincoln Riley and said, I would like to transfer. And Riley said, cool. And Riley has since said, I will root for Malachi forever and ever. And he wishes him well. But it is yet another quarterback that Riley had seen enough of to not want to make a move. And I think Miller Moss actually did the best job of explaining how we can look at Maddux Madsen being the starting quarterback over Malachi Nelson when he went to Big Ten Media Days, because it's a guy that's decided to stay at SC. It's a guy that, despite the coaching change and the new quarterback coming in after not being able to start when Jackson Dart was there and the new head coach, was going to stick it out. And when he finally got an opportunity, he seized that opportunity. And the thing that he would say to anybody that would listen is, it is really difficult to win Lincoln Riley's trust if you haven't done it before in a game environment. He just does not want to give you that trust until you go out there and earn it. And I think you can see that with guys like Baker Mayfield, guys like Jalen Hurts, guys like Kyler Murray, guys like Caleb Williams. He trusts them to dig themselves out of trouble and to know what is best for them. It's always fascinating and cool for me to see a head coach's relationship with his quarterback, because usually it is the only guy on the team for which he will talk to like a peer. He will talk to the quarterback as if he's talking to another coach. It's, what do you want to run here? Why do you want to run it? Tell me what you see. Tell me how you feel. Tell me what's working, what's not working. And they have such a great relationship because they spend so much time together that it can sometimes, with Riley, especially when he was younger, feel like a big brother, little brother situation. I mean, this is a man who teared up because he had to bench Baker Mayfield for the first series of a game against West Virginia because Baker grabbed his junk on national television, and that's what it was. I'm looking at Malachi Nelson, and I don't know who to talk to about this, because his NIL agent is also Nicole Lynn, who is Jalen Hurts' agent, right, if you will. He's got this tremendous group of people around him that have been managing his reputation. I remember we got at least one call to say, hey, would you like to have Malachi on the show? And we're like, does SC know about this? To which crickets, right? I didn't know who to talk to and who to talk about what with when it comes to Nelson. But I also think that this is kind of going to make some ripples throughout national college football. And now you're getting to see who's actually paying attention, because you've seen some folks out here that tell you they thought Boise State was going to be the group of 5 representative in the 12-team college football playoff. And I'm over here going, houseway. Houseway. And they're going, well, they got Malachi Nelson now. Nah, that's not the take. If you're going to put Boise State into the college football playoff. You have them winning the Mountain West, which means you got them beating UNLV, Wyoming, Fresno State off the rip, right? Say nothing of wherever the hell Air Force is going to be, and they always tough. And then they're going to have to hold up against Oregon, but we already know that's probably a loss for them unless something catastrophic goes on for Oregon. So you're telling me that you think that team is going to be better than any other G5 team in the country, not better than Memphis, right? Who is getting $25 million from FedEx for name, image, and likeness alone, right? There's some of these programs that do not want to be considered Group of 5 programs that are acting as if they don't want to be considered Group of 5 programs anymore, and Memphis is one of them. They should be a Big 12 school as far as I'm concerned. You're also telling me that you have no idea who Ashton Jeanty is, and I think Ashton Jeanty is one of the 100 best college football players in America today. What Ashton Jeanty is for Boise State is what Ollie Gordon was for Oklahoma State. That dude had over 1,300 yards rushing and 1,900 yards from scrimmage. I think that's also the thing. Maddux Madsen knows that, hey, the offense is through the tailback. It ain't through my arm. That just ain't, it ain't going to be that. It's going to be my arm when it's time to be my arm. But for the most part, my job is to give the ball to AJ and say, go score, dog. Like, get out of his way. I really am curious to see how long this lasts, right? Because I'm sure that Danielson is leaving the door open for Malachi Nelson to be about his business a little bit later on in the year, if not during the Georgia Southern game. That said, I find it fascinating that we're getting this announcement about 2 weeks before we're playing football in week 1, and it's just not a great look for Malachi Nelson. Like, ESPN did a big feature on Malachi Nelson just last week, talking about the journey that he's been on from high school in Los Alamitos to USC, sitting behind Caleb Williams, and then ultimately deciding to transfer to Boise State. We all kind of thought it was funny, right? Because Lincoln Riley does not have a habit of missing on quarterbacks. But if you're going to call any of them a miss, it might be Spencer Rattler, right? Who ends up doing a damn good job at South Carolina anyway and gets drafted in the NFL. And we'll see what happens with Malachi Nelson. Only other guy I'm going to probably throw in there might be Austin Kendall, because I think Tanner Mordecai was in the Malachi Nelson boat of, I just didn't get the shot that I wanted when I wanted it. Still, a dude that turns out to be okay, right? Southern Methodist had a great time, was decent, but not his best at Wisconsin. I think him at Southern Methodist was really great for him. And I was hoping that would be the story for Malachi Nelson. But that's not usually what happens, right? Excuse me. What usually happens is that Spencer Rattler goes to South Carolina, he's the starter. Tanner Mordecai goes to Southern Methodist, he's the starter. Malachi Nelson goes to Boise State, and he is sitting behind Maddux Madsen, who's coming out of American Fork, Utah, and was a 3-star recruit. It's a tough look. It's a tough look. Shout out to Maddux, though, man, because you did what you were supposed to do in camp. And every time we go into one of these things thinking that we know what we know, coach is watching practice, and coach just decides, nah, I like that guy better than I like that other guy, knowing what we're going to say about it. That's got more to do, I think, with Malachi Nelson than it does anybody else here. And Maddux knowing what he must do, having gone through so many different coaches, gone through Danielson, Hamden, all the way, and stuck with Boise State. I think there's something to be said about that. And he sounds like the kind of dude that is telling everybody he's an older guy in this room, and he acts like it. It's what you need out of your quarterback. So I'll be curious to see how the story continues to develop. But I'm doing the segment because Malachi Nelson was at USC with Lincoln Riley, and not because Boise State has decided to name us a starting quarterback, and I think you understand